I say the original three kind of
Yeah.
tongue in cheek because
Yeah, because
honestly,
it's
this is it's a franchise that started in the 60s and then they redid it with new ideas and some really interesting concepts, new technology, and now they're redoing that. It's like, come on, guys. Were all the original ideas in the 60s? Can we think of something else?
60s, 70s, and 80s, and we're just rehashing it all.
We're rehashing all of that. It's I don't know. This is a rehash of a rehash.
Right?
I mean, think about it. It's a rehash of an
Yep.
already rehashed idea. It's like, oh my
Yep.
God. Hello and welcome to the Brothers Random Show. My name is Travis,
I'm Michael.
and we are two ordinary brothers discussing extraordinary ideas and some random shit. Michael, why are we here?
Today we're talking about the dismal what we have in our movies nowadays. We just don't have a lot to go see. So we are going to talk about a movie that's been out for a little while, and that is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Are you familiar with the concept of evolution? In their time, humans were capable of many great things. They could fly like eagles fly. They could speak across oceans. But now it is our time. And it is my kingdom. We'll conquer.
It is a continuation of the very popular series of prequels to the Planet of the Apes movies. I don't know any other better way to put it. They started with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then the second one was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and the third one was War of the Planet of the Apes. And that was in 2017. That was the last one starring Andy Serkis
Andy Serkis
and
as Caesar,
as
which
Caesar.
and it was kind of wrapped up Caesar's story.
Mhm.
And which is kind of, I mean, it's kind of sad that was its own thing, and now they're starting a new thing. I mean, you were saying earlier that that's going to be tough because a lot of people liked that Caesar's story.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest problem with this one that came out, Kingdom, is that it doesn't have the same characters, and people really responded to the character of Caesar, played by Andy Serkis, and it might be just the performance or just the the films were very nuanced. They were very human oriented, but also like humanity is what makes humanity, what makes us the dominant species on the planet. Is it the intelligence? Is it the benevolence? All these,
Because ultimately, go ahead. Sorry, finish.
well, all these questions that this franchise kind of raises, and it continues all those things throughout, because Caesar's what's interesting about Caesar is that he's a benevolent ruler, but he also is like fighting against just human nature. And that,
Yeah, and it's to be fair is that we are humans watching the apes, but the apes are the good guys. Ultimately, you are trying to empathize, and the
yeah,
filmmakers are trying to have you empathize and follow along with the apes story,
yeah,
and that's
yes. And what's interesting about that though is that within that framework, there's a bunch of humanity kind of poured into these apes, because
Mhm.
they're showing the duality between the violent nature of human beings and their
Mhm.
benevolent nature, and which is what is interesting about those first three films, is because there's always this, um Caesar's always struggling to not to better, like, be a superior being, but at the same time he's an ape, so he's also fighting against the negativity of his nature, which would be to, fight and to kill and to maim, and that's what human beings are doing, on a regular basis. I mean, look at our look at our society now. We can't keep from fighting.
I
So
loved that they can in the first three films, especially the last two, they kind of played with this religious kind of aspect. They had this,
mhm.
they would say almost like "Thou shalt not kill" as one of the
Yes.
10 Commandments. They kind of
Yes.
play with this apes not kill apes
Yes.
um, in the other films, and they kind of continue to play with this religious aspect in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, where um, now that Caesar has been dead for a few hundred years, how does that look as that's kind of turned into legend and myth? They have this Proximus Caesar who is
Who's
supposed to
taken
kind
on
of
the
be
man?
taking
Who's
on the mantle of
Yeah.
Caesar,
Yeah.
but also they obviously they've got like factions, some
Tribes. Yeah. Tribes.
like tribes. But then the character that they introduce us to, the orangutan Raka, kind of points out that a tribe of apes had come in and stolen away
Another
this
tribe.
village.
Yeah.
They had taken this village, as prisoners, and basically they say they're doing it in the name of Caesar. But Raka points out that they
They've kind of
that
bastardized his philosophy.
his teachings, his philosophy,
Yeah.
right? And so they've got, and so it's kind of interesting to see them play out these like religious aspects,
Over
where it's the
many.
same. Like we've
Yeah.
got, wars being fought in the name of Jesus, but then but
Or
Jesus's teachings, and you got people saying, well, Jesus's teachings are really, love thy neighbor and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so it definitely, they're kind
It's
of playing with that, and
it.
it's really cool to see. It's really cool to kind of see that played out in this film.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, our my history with the franchise is the 1960s version I watched as a kid. It had a massive creep factor to it that these films are missing, but that's okay. It has one of the best twists of a movie of all time. It was a
Mhm.
huge deal back in the 60s. The Charlton
Because that twist
Heston.
was that you didn't think you were on Earth. You
Yeah.
basically land like
You
the
thought
whole
it was
film.
yeah.
Spoiler, right, for those who watched the old one, but the whole film was built around that they thought they had landed on this planet, and they didn't think they were on Earth. The
But it
big
turns out they were on
reveal
Earth. Yeah.
being that he finds the Statue of Liberty head,
Yeah.
and realizes that he is indeed on Earth.
Yeah. And that
Um,
was the big twist of that one. And they made several sequels without Charlton Heston in that one, or in that era.
mhm.
And they were lesser films by far, but I remember seeing maybe one.
Do you think
Um
we're leading up to a complete remake of those films? Because
well, they were doing that in 2017. Their thought process
those
was
ones
is that they
were
would,
dropping hints. There were little things.
yeah, there were little hints that they were leading up to the 1960s version of Planet of the Apes. And the truth is I think they've kind of dropped that idea with this Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, because they're trying to start a whole new franchise.
Yeah.
So before we get into spoilers, I guess. So I really, really liked. I own the first three films. I really liked all of them. I thought they were excellently done. The first one is, they're all like they have enough nuance because the idea is that it's really ridiculous. It's a ridiculous idea, right? But they have enough nuance, and the character of Caesar's so compelling and so well acted that it truly is. They truly are good, really good films, and very entertaining. And they have something more than the average action film, I would say. Um, so that's what I have to say about those. What I have to say about this one is it's a lesser film. I don't know why, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I think it's because the characters are less compelling than Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
Caesar's
Caesar went through quite a bit of development, especially in the first one.
yes.
Uh,
He's raised by a benevolent human being, and so he
yeah,
loves the humans, but he's pulled away by
but
their
then also his mother
cruelty.
was killed by humans.
Yes,
He's kind of in this place where he he starts to understand that there's good humans and there's bad
bad
humans.
humans. Yep.
And then in the second one, you start to see him understand that there's good apes and there's bad apes.
Yes.
Um,
And by
which
the
is
third one, it's just all out. Um, he's trying to still toe the line between the good and the bad.
yeah,
So it's very much a continuation. And and so in this one, I think that's what's missing. I think
that
the
deep character study into
that deep
one,
character
especially
study.
one of the characters.
Yes.
Um,
Because with this one,
yeah,
we've seen characters who are young rise to we've seen that story. We've seen
yeah,
that. So this one's, if I had to say, is probably very much the hero's journey story.
yeah,
The new character is Noah. He's
mm-hmm.
young, and he's trying to figure out the world around him and that kind of thing, and he's kind of forced to. And this is the hero's journey. This is the kind of story that we all love, right? The thing that elevates the first three, they're also character studies of morality. And you
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in this, who the good guys and the bad guys are, right? It's very cut and
yeah,
dry. These are the good guys, these are the bad guys. And in the first three, you don't quite know who's good and who's bad, because
yeah,
they all have a perspective, right? They're all
yeah,
kind of, and especially in the second one. The second one, there's a human character who's kind of trying to draw the line between the two um species of primates, and he's just kind of like, and he's a good person, but he's also dealing with all the evil people who keep trying to make war between the apes and the
yeah,
humans. So
yeah,
it's a it's much more nuanced, I would say, the first three. This one's kind of straightforward. They just have, here's the hero's journey. It is interesting in this one, like you said, like how religion has kind of he's become a religious figure, Caesar, over several generations. This movie takes place probably at least 100 years later.
yeah. It said many generations, so
Yeah, it's
probably
very vague
one,
about
two
it.
hundred years, something like
Yeah.
that. It doesn't really give us a full, I guess, full accounting.
Well, and
Um,
there's warring tribes of apes, and there's peaceful tribes of apes, and then
yeah,
there's religious apes and non-religious apes, and so it very much kind of mirrors the society that it's working towards. The truth is it's a lesser film, I would say. What are your thoughts on it?
um, yeah. I mean, I liked it. I think you're right. Like lesser film than the other three. It did feel like it kind of struggled with some character development with Noah and his friends. I loved the interactions that he would have with his friends, but
Mhm.
you saw very little of that because his friends get kidnapped and stolen away, and and then it's just kind of him. I loved the character of what was the orangutan?
Raka.
Raka. I loved Raka.
He's a great character.
I feel like they could have utilized him a little bit more and better.
I agree.
And
I agree.
they
they
but
didn't.
We'll get into
spoilers.
but then what else? It was a kind of confusing with once the Freya Allen character comes in, and
it doesn't know.
I don't know.
It doesn't know where to go with her character.
It doesn't quite. Yeah, it felt like they were kind of not sure what to do with that character, with humans. But overall, I liked it, and we can get into spoilers, and so that we can talk about some of those things. But
all right,
yeah,
let's do spoilers now. This movie doesn't know. This movie is kind of frustrating because it's almost two movies, because she starts out as a feral human, and then she becomes like more intelligent than anybody. She's dealing with technology by the end.
Yeah.
And it's way out there. Like, it's like you have to, like, so it's hard to figure out what her motivations were, because at first they think she's a dumb human being, and they name her and they talk about her.
They point this out in the other films, that basically what the demise of humans is a virus went and killed most of the humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then those who survived seemed to be like immune or whatever, but then the virus possibly mutates to where it changes to where once a human gets this virus, they become feral. They become not able to talk. So they become like an ape. They become like an animal. So this virus is out there. Well, and then you skip ahead a few hundred years, and we don't know what's going on with the virus. Okay. So there's this girl, and all the humans don't talk, right? So none of the humans talk. And this sounds about right to set up for if they were going to do something with a remake of the original Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, the 1960s
with Charlton Heston. Because when they came back to Earth, none of the humans spoke.
Yeah.
None of them could talk. They're all feral. They were like apes. But all of a sudden, she can talk. Okay. It makes you wonder, okay, the virus must be gone then. But then towards the end of the show, you realize the virus is still out there alive and well. And that's why other humans that you see are all donned in
bunkers, and they have hazmat suits on.
Hazmat suits, yeah. The whole thing.
She must be immune to it. She must be
immune or something, but they never explain any of that.
No.
That's why I was just like, what?
They don't explain any of it, but it's irritating because she starts out as this feral human being, and then like the twist is that she's just been acting to try to infiltrate the apes.
It had some holes. Yeah, it didn't quite like add up very well.
It didn't really add up very well. Like, I'm like watching it going, so her motivation the whole time was to so there's this satellite key that's in a bunker that the Ape King Proximo, the villain of this movie, he's like a self-proclaimed king of the apes, is trying to break into. and she's there to break into it and also she ends up getting basically a computer hard drive that's supposed to have the key to satellite connections for her.
And get that back to her
And
other humans.
this is supposed to be like, it just slowly reveals all this. Like, first you find out that she actually can speak, then you find out she's actually able to read, then you find out she knows how to get into the bunker that nobody else knows how to. So is this a byproduct of the boss bitch, or
Oh,
the boss,
needing
the
to
girl
have
boss?
a strong female character.
Yeah, needing to have the strong female character that
Possibly. I mean,
because I don't mind that. I don't mind it. I really liked Furiosa. I thought that was actually a really good movie. I don't know if this is a good movie. I'm very on the fence about it. My expectations were super low when I went to it. It kind of rose to the expectations. I thought the action scenes were very compelling. But after leaving, I'm sitting there going, I'm applying some logic to this movie. I'm like, so her motivations the whole time, acting feral, acting like the rest of the humans. So we're led to believe that there are feral humans that have gone back to the caveman days, and there are still humans who aren't feral, who live in bunkers, who are trying to get communication with other countries through satellite links. And her journey is she's supposed to get to this other bunker, get a satellite link key, and take it back to her humans, and then sacrifice the apes in the process. All the apes in the process. Noah is learning this as they go along. He builds a bond with her, a connection with her. But after she's kind of betrayed him towards the end, it doesn't solidify. Like, he's not thinking to himself anymore that, like Caesar, that there are good humans and there are bad humans. He's just starting to think they're all bad because she betrayed him. I don't know if I like that message of the movie.
That he is left with just that all humans are bad.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
I mean, I guess there might be a little bit of nuance there because they say goodbye to each other at the very end.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, she's got her hand on her gun.
Yeah, because she's cautious of it.
Yeah, it's just it is.
It's like it didn't know what it wanted to be. It's
right.
Like it wanted to have the nuance of the first three films, but they weren't good enough to do it. They weren't quite good enough to get that really perfect balance.
Like, have a good guy, but then have like good humans, bad humans, good apes, bad apes.
Well, and also have the nuance to know the motivations of both and to identify with the motivations of both. Now, Koba in the second one is the villain of that series, and it's the only ape that Caesar ends up killing. But the whole point to that is that Koba is so damaged by trauma that he wants revenge on the human race.
Yeah.
And see, that's a identifiable. That's a you can identify with that.
You identify that.
You can go, oh, I understand what this villain is doing. I understand where he comes from because I've been victimized by people too. What's interesting about this movie is it's almost like they're trying to balance that, but they can't quite get it. And it's a lesser film because they can't quite get it. And I don't know, maybe it's the motion capture with all the apes is pretty good, and they still get the same expressions, but there's moments in War of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
There's moments in that are so dang good. There's like a dark where he's got shadow on one side of his face and he's contemplating what he's supposed to do. That's so good. And I don't know if it's the acting or the CGI or what, but it's just, there's not that moment in this movie. Like, you can watch this movie and believe that these are apes and be okay with it, but I feel like the CGI is not up to par.
Not as good.
It feels like we're going backwards
Uh-huh.
because these movies cost so dang much to make. To render an image lifelike like what we've been doing or what we had been doing with the first three probably costs
Yeah.
way more than what they've.
Yeah, 160 million is what this one is budget. I didn't look at what Wars was,
Well, but the
but
point is that it's going to probably be about the same, but they got more bang for their buck
right, right, because it's getting more expensive.
because
Right.
it's getting more expensive. Hollywood just had a bunch of strikes that is ruining, like, just the
Yeah.
anybody can go to the box office this summer, look at what is playing, and just kind of go, nothing good.
Hmm.
So, and that's why we're doing a movie that's like been out for 4 weeks now or 5 weeks or
Yeah.
how long it's been out. I mean, it's this movie's fine. It's okay. It's entertaining. There's a couple of great action scenes that I would venture. The the first scene with the eagles I thought was very cool and compelling because it also shows Noah's a competent ape. He might be a little bit, wet behind the ears and young, but it also shows that he's very competent. That was a good thing for that first scene,
Opener. Yeah, yeah.
the opening scene. I was impressed by the scene in the grass, the tall grass, where he saves her,
Mhm.
where she first speaks. They went a direction with this movie with her that they probably shouldn't have done. It's like they wanted their cake and eat it too. They started out with her being feral, and when you put any logic to it, you're like, well, why didn't she just kind of like, is she being feral to just integrate into the society with these apes, or because she's got a goal, she's got a mission, and it's like,
Why pretend to be feral
why
for
pretend to be
so
feral?
long? Right.
Why not
Yeah.
just
It's
go up
like,
and talk to him? It's almost like they had two scripts. Like the first script was, we have this girl and she's going to be feral, but maybe her speech is coming back and maybe the virus is reversing or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah.
And and then they had this other script which had the girl boss trope. And they were like, "Oh, we like both of these things. How about we combine them both?" That's what it felt like.
Right. Interesting.
I just don't get her motivations for being feral. Why not wow them by going up to them and talking to them? What was the motivations for her being feral?
I don't know. They did take her once they realized she was, quote unquote special.
Yeah, yeah.
They did take her to another human that could speak
Yeah.
and read, etc. And
But then
and
it basically takes away the novelty of having humans be feral, because then you realize towards the end of this movie the humans aren't, and they have technology and they're trying to communicate with the other parts of the world. It's like
right.
you've defeated your whole purpose of making this interesting.
Right. And it also kind of brought you out of this world that they have this world, and there's cities and there's vines climbing up these
Yeah, yeah.
cities. It's all ruins,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all old and run down in ruins. It's like it's an ancient civilization, but then all of a sudden you got this girl walking up to a girl and another gal in a bunker and in a hazmat suit, and you're like, wait, what? And it kind of brought you out of
Yeah, it's like two
that
different
world.
movies, right? It's like
Yeah.
one movie is this girl on a mission to find the MacGuffin is what we call it.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter what it is, but it's basically this key that is supposed to be the satellite link, and
Mhm.
and the fact that it's just not it's just not as good storytelling. I really think that Hollywood has really got some, they got to find the good storytellers. They just have to. It's just not as well done.
Yeah.
You know, when we can place all this logic on it, like the thing that she should have done at the beginning is just walked up to the huge gorilla guy who's like the captain of the head captain of the king of Proxima or whatever his name was. Um,
Proximo Caesar, yeah.
yeah, all it would have taken for her to finish her mission is to go up to him and speak. Like, why evade them? I don't get.
Hmm.
Maybe there's cut scenes that would explain that. I don't really.
I don't know. Do you think they make another one?
I don't think they have. I don't think this was a good enough success.
Yeah, because it was 160 million to make. Some of the places I was reading said that it would need to make 330 million to just break even.
Yeah,
And
after Prince and
worldwide it made 363 million. So
it barely squeaked by.
It kind of barely squigged by, right? I mean, a few million ahead, like 30 million above is probably not anything to scoff at, but at the same time, it wasn't a huge success. And so it does kind of beg the question, do they keep doing this? Do they keep making these?
I can't imagine, because okay, so they're not making anything new, right? So things have stalled out in Hollywood for a real original stuff.
Yeah.
So if they're not really making anything new, and everything's turned to kind of, you know, it's tough to say, but a lot of stuff has turned to shit. You know, Star Wars, anybody? Star Wars. Um, uh, it's hard to say that they don't look at this and go, okay, well, we broke even. It's made a little bit of money. It'll probably make a little bit of money on video on demand. Disney owns this franchise now because they bought Fox. So I can't imagine, there's not a lot of good going on at Disney right now. I mean, I have high hopes for Inside Out 2 because I just love that first movie. But I'm hoping that Inside Out 2 is actually a pretty decent family film. But Disney is, their track record is not going well. And so it's hard to imagine that if they just barely break even, they try again. I could imagine that they would try again at a lesser budget, and therefore the CGI is going to look worse. It's going to continue to look
slowly
worse.
kind of circle the drain.
Yeah.
And be worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could see that happening, you know, if they decide to continue, you know. And it's hard to say when they didn't do too well. I mean, we're talking about it 4 weeks later. People weren't that excited for it. It lacks the nuance and gravitas of the first 3 films. So, and it wasn't terribly reviewed. It's probably one of the better reviewed movies that came out this year. But the box office this year has been pretty terrible. I mean, Furiosa's box office was kind of shocking, actually.
So, and that, I mean, it could be the new norm of people these films barely making their money back.
Yeah. Well, the internet has coined the flop buster. So they're still making money, but they're barely recouping their costs.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's got to be
buster.
There's got to be people, well, because the movies cost so much to make and then so much to advertise. The advertisement for movies nowadays, their budgets are so dang high that it's you could make like 2 movies. You could make 2
just
movies
off the advertising budget.
Just off the advertising budget.
Yeah.
2 or 3 movies. So the whole point is that they cost too much to make. They're not very good. They're not taking risks with them. because they want that they're finding franchises. Oh, this franchise over here that people don't remember much about. Let's redo that. Or this franchise over here that people don't remember much about. Let's redo that. And that's all they want.
They
Because
want an already success rate IP,
yes.
intellectual property. They want to make sure that they're going to make their money back.
Well, and that's the problem, because when you do something new, like John Krasinski's original movie that isn't based on anything, and it flops, then that gives the studios, oh, hey, we're not going, we shouldn't go this route. And that was that. I mean, that I don't like to crap over the movie because it's a good movie. It's just kind of it has some flaws, and it needed to be funnier. But the whole problem with that is that the one original movie that came out this year flopped, and now Hollywood's going to go, oh, well, we still need to find old IP, because it's it's name recognition. They just want to put out name recognition. So you find an old like I've heard for years Logan's Run was going to be remade. And Logan's Run, it was made in I think the early 70s. It was, or the 60s. And it was this sci-fi thing, and it's an old movie that not very many like young people, but it has enough IP that older people are going to go, oh, they made a remake of Logan's Run. Let's go watch that, So they're just going to keep mining for old IP. I don't think they're going to try to make anything new. And if that's if they're that intellectually bankrupt, I don't. This will be a hard summer for movies. I think people are going to go. The summer of 2024 was the summer where Hollywood maybe went, oh, we need original ideas.
We might be in for the next several years. This might be a decade
of
strap in for a decade of crappy shows.
Crappy shit.
I don't know, but I don't get my hopes up much for some of the future of Hollywood.
Yeah, me neither. So, any final thoughts on that movie?
Nope. I don't think so.
It's a good movie. It's not up to the standard that is
the Planet of the Apes.
Like the original three. And I say the original three kind of tongue in cheek, because honestly, it's a franchise that started in the 60s, and then they redid it with new ideas and some really interesting concepts, new technology, and now they're redoing that. It's like, come on, guys. Were all the original ideas in the 60s? Can we think of something else?
60s, 70s, and 80s, and we're just rehashing it all.
We're rehashing all of that. I don't know. This is a rehash of a rehash.
Right?
I mean, think about it. It's a rehash of an already rehashed idea. It's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I really did expect at some point in this movie to see a spaceship land that would have the characters from the 1960s version.
We might be the next one or two. I could imagine we might be in for that. I honestly think that this is going to be its own story. They're going to do 3 films. I think this is what they were planning on doing. 3 films that would be around this Noah character. Mm-hmm. And then we would get 3 films that would be around the spaceship coming back.
Not going to happen.
I don't know if it'll last that long.
I don't think it'll last that long, but
yeah,
that's just my pessimism talking. So thank you for joining us, audience. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. And if you're
Let us know what you
listening,
think in the comments.
yeah, let's know, talk to us about if you liked this movie or if this movie's just a rehash of a rehash. If you're just listening to us and not watching us, please go to our YouTube channel and like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in the meantime, keep reading, keep listening, keep watching, learn more. See you, brother.
See ya.